believers after last week's story of doubting Thomas. But now the disciples are far away from Jerusalem. They're back up north in Galilee. The Sea of Tiberias, as mentioned in today's story, is the same as the Sea of Galilee or Lake Gennesaret. There's a few different names for some of these same places. And today's story is often seen as the reversal of Peter's kind of threefold betrayal that we see on the night that Jesus was arrested. So this is kind of the setting for today's story. As we are by the sea, and by the shore. Today, Jesus appeared again to his disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and this is how it happened. Simon Peter, Thomas, called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana, Zebedee's sons, and other disciples were all together. And Simon Peter said, "Everyone's okay." And Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." And the other disciples said, "We will go with you." So they go in the boat and they set off on the sea. All night long, they cast their nets. But throughout the night, they catch nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore. And Jesus called them, "Children, have you caught anything to eat?" They answered, "No." So he says, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they did, and there were so many fish, they could not pull the net in. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard it was the Lord, he wrapped a coat around himself, for he was naked, and he jumped into the water and swam to shore. The other disciples followed along in the boat and dragged the net. When they landed, they saw a fire there, with other fish being cooked. Jesus said to them, "Bring the fish that you've caught." Simon Peter got up and pulled the net to the shore. It was full of large fish, 153 of them, yet the net had not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come, have breakfast." None of the disciples could bring themselves to ask, "Who are you?" For they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took bread, and gave it to them, and he did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they finished eating, said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Simon replied, "Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." Jesus asked a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." He asked a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was sad that Jesus asked him a third time. He replied, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. I assure you that when you were younger, you tied your own belt and walked around wherever you wanted. When you grow old, you will stretch out your hand, and another will tie your belt and lead you where you don't want to go." He said this to show of the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. After saying this, Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
So now I'll ask a couple of questions, and I invite you to turn to folks who are around you and discuss a little bit. This is a very interesting story, and there's a lot going on, so I'm sure we all pick up on different things. The first two questions, I wonder why the disciples didn't recognize Jesus at first, and why they did recognize him when they did. And the second question, I wonder why Jesus feeds them before even speaking to them. So take a moment, think about it. I wonder why the disciples didn't recognize Jesus, and why they finally recognize him when they do. And the other question, I wonder why Jesus feeds them first. So go ahead, turn to someone nearby you. Talk about one or both of those. And I wonder if Peter was surprised by what Jesus was asking him to do. Those are two questions. Think about for just a moment. I wonder what kind of shepherd Jesus wants Peter to be. And I wonder if Peter was surprised by what Jesus was asking him to do. So again, turn to someone nearby. Recognize Jesus when he shows up in our lives. So again, turning to someone nearby. someone is doing something nice for us, or when we are maybe doing something nice for them, or maybe when someone's doing something nice for us, but we'd rather not do something nice for them. Did I get that right? Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so question I thought was really profound, I guess, was the second question, first question of why did Jesus speak them before talking to them?
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting because there are times where you can't always hear the voice of the Lord, and it's a struggle to keep going and keep persevering, but He's always there for you, and always going to be there to help you and to build you up.
Yeah.
And so regardless of how you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. So Finn was saying regarding the second part of the first questions of why Jesus feeds them before even speaking, he said that sometimes in our lives that it's really hard to hear God, and it's important for us to know that God is always with us and God is always there, even if we can't really hear Him. But that's an important thing for us to remember, the presence of Christ with us. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. I appreciate it. Others? Yeah, MJ.
For like the final question, the last part of the phone question, where we see God, I know that every time I was hanging out with Chris, and then we felt the presence of God and love God.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So as you said, regarding where do we recognize Jesus in our lives, in particular, NJ mentioned Chris as a person who has really helped NJ to see Christ in their life. And I think that we all have people like that. Chris was certainly a person like that for all of us. And we all have many people who help us recognize Christ in our midst. Yeah, thank you, NJ. Anyone else? Yeah, Jenny.
Also kind of connecting different questions and thinking about when you look at the reading. So Jesus, the way I'm seeing it, he did speak to them before he met them, but they didn't know who was Jesus. So connecting that back, how we recognize Jesus, it's not the words, it's the action, it's showing love and caring for people rather than just what you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Jenny noticed that Jesus does actually speak to the disciples. They just don't recognize that it's Jesus speaking in that moment, right? It says, cast down on pyramids. And so she said it's often more so what people are doing around us that help us recognize Christ in our midst rather than just listening for particular words. Yeah, thank you. Actions are a huge part of that. Absolutely. Maybe one more person?
Everyone's kind of off the wall.
Yeah.
So, recently in the news, I don't know if you all heard the story, but there was a little 2-year-old boy that wandered away from his home. He went 7 miles. This is a true story. And the search parties came out and they discovered mountain lions and bears, and they couldn't find the boy. But what happened during the night is the man on the next property, his dog, sensed that something was wrong and went and slept with the boy and kept the boy alive all night by keeping him warm.
Yeah.
Next morning, brought the boy down to the man's property, and, they reunited family and everything, but that's a miracle. So I believe, I'm going to be emotional, I don't know, but I believe that God works through animals as well as people.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what we need to hear.
Absolutely.
We don't hear people, but we hear them.
Well, and that action, again, right, recognizing back to what Jenny said. Yeah, so what Anne was saying is that, the story, I read that too, of a little boy who wandered away, was lost overnight, and a neighbor's dog came and slept next to the boy, and in the morning led him to safety. And there's so many ways that God shows up that we are not always expecting, that may seem a little strange or out of the ordinary by our kind of human standards of what God might look like. And being open to, even in a dog, in the midst of the woods, whatever that can look like, God shows up. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is a very interesting story. There's a lot that goes on, and we appreciate Jesus coming to the disciples again and encouraging them some more. Feed my sheep, care for one another. And I think that we certainly hear a very deep understanding of what that means. I'm very grateful to have heard from all of you, so thank you so much. And may we take these Where might God